Hey all you people, hey all you people, hey all you people, Captain River is back.
Hello.
Today, we're finally continuing the video series where I'll talk about my concepts for Mario Kart 9 and how to make it a good follow-up for Mario Kart 8 after more than 10 years of playing this game.
Hey, I should be the canon Mario Kart. I may be a mobile game with microtransactions, but
No. Stop it, Mario Kart Tour. Your gameplay success, it's nothing compared to regular Mario Kart games. Now, get out of our Million series.
I'm thinking Nintendo will prevent canon.
Mario Kart Wii, you're good at it, but you didn't need to be so rude with him. Well, I'm objectively the best Mario Kart game. You'll agree with me, right?
I prefer Mario Kart 7 personally.
Now, that's enough faffing around. Let's talk about my concept for Mario Kart 9 game. You see, the Nitro tracks were something I've been looking forward to doing since the start of the series, because while it's nice to see a retro track that makes you nostalgic, gets a nice glow up, or to be able to play as one of your favorite characters in Mario games, the new tracks are always more exciting to me, as they will often be an entire surprise. As such, Nintendo can go all out with their creativity to make new bangers. So I wanted to go all out with my ideas as well. I wanted, for example, to include more section-based tracks and more tracks with the app changing. Also, most of the tracks will be based off an already existing location from the Mario series. In Mario Kart DS, many tracks were based off of real levels from Mario games, and that just made this game feel more Mario-ish than the other Mario Kart games, even though Super Mario Kart also poked a lot of inspiration from Super Mario World, which was the newest Mario game when the first Mario Kart came out. As such, it would be nice to have more true Mario references and track themes for these games. Now, we can finally start talking about my track ideas for Mario Kart 9.
Please let this be a normal video.
With Rillaboom.
No way!
Aww.
First, we have the Mushroom Cup. Now, in my Nitro selection, I decided to crank the difficulty of the tracks up a bit, since I think this could make the game more exciting. But obviously, the Mushroom Cup is only the beginner cup, and this may be, for some people, the first cup they'll ever play in a Mario Kart game, so these tracks shouldn't be too difficult here. Plus, we have another limit for this cup. The Mushroom Cup shouldn't have tracks that are too climactic. Otherwise, the next cups will be underwhelming, and it will just leave a bad taste in the player's mouth that the first cup ends up being more climactic than the special cup. But we can still find ways to make these tracks fun and hectic, even though they are limited by the fact that they have to be easy and pretty chill for newcomers.
Mama? Mama Luigi?
Mario Kart Stadium is easily the best track that has ever opened a Mushroom Cup. Most starter tracks are really boring, not only in terms of layout, but also in terms of theming. They just look like Formula 1 race tracks and don't feel very Mario-ish, nor climactic as a way to welcome the player. But Mario Kart Stadium puts all the previous starter tracks to shame by actually having a fun layout that is still easy enough for newcomers, introducing the mechanics of anti-gravity and gliding, having various elements like boost panels and shortcuts that make the tracks more varied and unique, and having an atmosphere that is way better, with the track taking place in a stadium at night with thousands of spectators cheering you on and a much more epic soundtrack. So I think that the starter track in the next Mario Kart game should be like this too, and it's gonna be a Luigi track. It was really important for me that he'd get at least one track in the base game of my Mario Kart 9, seeing that not a single actual racetrack is a Luigi track in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, despite the potential for GBA Luigi Circuit or Boston Building to get a graphic overhaul in glorious HD with the Booster Course Pass. and I think that Ouija deserves better than this. We can start the track with two sets of bleachers and a lot of spectators cheering the players on as the race starts. The first turn goes through a tunnel with green neon lights. When you come out of it, you can see a giant jumbotron with a golden L written on it alongside Ouija's head. Next to it, there is a road that splits in three. Two of the paths lead to boost panels, but the middle one only has one boost panel. However, it ends with a glider ramp. After this, we get to the first anti-gravity section in the Nitro selection. It starts off with a loop around the giant replica of Ouija's head. Then you get to a U-turn up in the air before going down and jumping underwater with a boost pad. The anti-gravity section continues underwater as we do a barrel roll near Ouija's submarine. Then you come out of the water, also exiting the anti-gravity section in the process, while Ouija's blimp from the Mario Kart Super Circuit tracks Ouija Circuit and Sky Garden can be seen in the background. After the final jump, you turn right to finish the race. Honestly, this could easily become the best starter track ever made if it ever were to happen, introducing you to underwater driving, anti-gravity, gliding, and tricking.
Riaboom, didn't you forget something?
You're right. Thanks for reminding me, Gas Team. I forgot to talk about the main gimmick in Mario Kart 9, the Wonder Flower. On the final lap or final section, a Wonder Flower effect activates and changes the gameplay, and sometimes the visuals of its track too. But since it's the starter track we're talking about, I think we should start with a simple one. On the final lap, a mild earthquake hits the track. This affects the road a bit as this allows for tricking off broken pathway.
That's a quote from Spy Kids 2. Have you ever seen it? It's like peak cinema.
Super Mario Bros. Wonder is without a doubt the best 2D Mario platformer ever made, thanks to its creativity, its stellar atmosphere, its incredible and varied level design, and its intricate world building. So I really wanted to have a track based on that game in my Nitro selection. As you can see, the word I chose to represent is Fluff Puff Pigs. There are several reasons for that. First, it can give us the obligatory snow track for the Nitro selection. Then, this word is a fan favorite. On the internet, I often see people talking about how beautiful this world is, and I agree with them. This is a very solid world, especially for just being the second one in the game, which means the levels naturally can't get too ambitious. This world is beautiful, with a gorgeous pink-blue color palette, and it also offers a varied selection of settings, from snowy wastelands to cloudy mountains to the sky with weathers that can vary too. Sometimes it's sunny, sometimes it's stormy, sometimes a blizzard hits. It's a really ambitious, varied, and fun world.
I would probably eat those pink clouds if I could find one. They look like cotton candy.
And this variety is perfect to get the player pumped up for the game even early on. So Fluff Puff Pigs is really a great choice to be the second track in the Mushroom Cup, and the first section-based track as well. The track starts with a straightaway with some snowmen to avoid. Then we climb a small cliff by going around it with two turns, and you can cut off the second one with a mushroom by going in this tiny canyon. After this, you enter an anti-gravity cave. During the turns, you go very high up in the air to get really close to the stalactites, especially since the first half-pipes in the game can be found in this cave. This cave even has shining crystals, and you go higher and higher until you exit it. You then exit the anti-gravity section and enter section 2 after a straightaway on another snowy path. After this, you climb an anti-gravity ice wall with a lot of boost panels. You end up getting on the highest ice cap in the track. After this, you jump on several puffy lifts before entering this final section, which starts on a giant puffy cloud. This section primarily consists of a long glider section, just like the final section in Woohoo Mountain Loop.
I like to call this track back at Uhu.
During this glider section, there are several things to watch out for. There are, for example, cloud rings that let you get more airtime, a bit like the star rings in the final section of 3DS Rainbow Road. But there's also the Wonder Flower effect of this track. It basically spawns tornadoes on the whole track. You should avoid them, otherwise they push you and you fall off. They are present on the grounded parts as well, but they're especially dangerous in the gliding section because of how big they are. When you finish the glider section, you circle the summit of Fluff Puff Peaks before finishing the race, and from there, you'd be able to see the snowy path where you started the race. Just like the cannon in GCN DK Mountain, being wowed by the fact that this is where you started the race from would make the track more satisfying to play. Overall, Fluff Puff Peaks would be a great way to tell the player that from now on, the game is gonna get more and more exciting, and to make them want to discover the next tracks.
Honey, I'm home.
Mario Kart doesn't really have a lot of tracks based on one of the two Super Mario Galaxy games, despite those being among the most popular Mario games of all time. The only one we have, Rosalina's Ice World, isn't based on a specific level or location in one of those two games. It's still a great track with a stellar atmosphere and a fun layout, but I think Super Mario Galaxy deserves a better representation in the Mario Kart franchise. And instead of just having a track loosely based on Rosalina or the Lunas, I decided to turn a specific level into a Mario Kart course for my Nitro selection. And the level I chose is Honey Hive Galaxy. With its grassy aesthetic, it can be the obligatory track with grassy theme that you generally find in one of the first two cups, a bit like Moo Moo Meadows in Mario Kart Wii, Daisy Hills in Mario Kart 7, Shroom Ridge in Mario Kart DS, or even Swamp Ruins in Mario Kart 8. But with its hive theming, it also allows for a track with a more unique theme than just grassy plains in a dirt path, like say Moo Moo Farm from Mario Kart 64 or the Donut Plains tracks from Super Mario Kart. And the Honey Hive Galaxy is actually packed with a lot of obstacles and gimmicks to go through, like the Bee Mario power-up that forces you to be careful not to fall in the water, the honey walls you can climb with this power-up, the boulders you have to avoid, and varied enough scenery with a color palette that's kinda pleasing on the eyes. So it would make an excellent track for the Mushroom Cup. And this time, it's gonna be our first track with changing laps in the game. If you don't know what this mechanic is, well, in the Booster Course Pass, Nintendo had to find a way to adapt the fact that Mario Kart Tour City tracks had different variants to a Mania in Mario Kart gameplay. And to do this, they decided to make lap-based tracks, but with a twist. Each lap pretty much starts at the same spot, but the route they take is different. So I'll apply this concept to a couple of tracks in this game as well. Now, I'll show you the layout for a new Honey Hive Sprint track, and if you don't know the Tour City tracks in the Booster Course Pass, well, I think you'll pretty much understand the changing lap gimmick easily with this. The first lap starts with a jump that takes you to a rock canyon. You turn right, and then you have to avoid several honey puddles. If you go on them, they slow you down, like off-road sections. Then, after this, you jump on a half-pipe shaped road, a bit like those bonus levels in Sonic 2 for example. On this anti-gravity zone, there are several boost panels, and this turn with the half-pipe is the highest point of it. Then you jump out of the anti-gravity road back on a grassy, floaty island. There is a roundabout around a fountain before another turn that takes you back to the starting line. Then, for lap 2, you start by jumping in the canyon again, but this time you turn left. You climb higher and higher while there are boulders falling. After this, you jump on flowers that work like the mushrooms in Wii Mushroom Gorge. Then, you dive into a pond with a lot of ancient pillars and flowers to avoid in this underwater section. After exiting the pond, you go on the bridge before getting back on the anti-gravity road, and the last part of the second lap is the same as in the first lap. For the final lap, you start by going in the canyon and climbing even higher than in lap 2. This time, you turn left 2 times to go into a tunnel where you get to another part of the canyon that takes you even higher. You then start a guiding section with beehive-shaped rings that can give you airtime if you fly into them. When you land, you then start an anti-gravity section that has you climb a honey wall. Except here, you should instead avoid the honey that slows you down, but this also allows for a neat shortcut. You then enter the hive itself. There are a lot of honey puddles to avoid and tricky turns on top of that. In the end, you go back in the canyon, but this time you turn right to end the track backwards. And that's Honey Hive Sprint. Honestly, even if the layout for this track ends up being different than the one I created, I'd still be so happy if we got a track based on Honey Hive Galaxy. This theme could really make for an amazing Mario Kart track.
Come on, Squidward, you're missing all the drive.
In the Mario Kart series, there are already a very consequent number of mushroom cups that end with a desert track. Mario Kart 64's Mushroom Cup ended with Calamari Desert, Mario Kart's Double Dash's Mushroom Cup ended with a dry desert, and Mario Kart 7's Mushroom Cup ended with Shy Guy Bazaar. So I think it could be a good idea to end Mario Kart 9's Mushroom Cup with the desert track that's a bit more dynamic and unique, because it won't just be a desert track, but also a traffic track. Most desert tracks are either Egyptian-style deserts with pyramids or orange deserts with just rocks here and there. What about, instead, an American-style desert that would kind of look like the ride Radiator Springs Racers in Disney California Adventure? It would probably make for a very unique desert track with a varied scenery, a climactic rock music, a cool layout, and an exciting theme. In fact, why not add changing laps to this track too? You start near a giant rock in an American-style desert. The starting line is in a road where cars are constantly rolling and you have to avoid them. You turn right to get on a highway that borders a cliff, and from there you have 2 choices. This slower path that is safe from the cars, or this faster path where a lot of cars are moving. Then you can cross the other spots in the city, like a lot of skyscrapers, a candy shop, or a gas station. Then you turn right to complete the first lap. The second lap starts with the same straightaway, but this time you turn left. Then you enter a cave and...
No, Ruben! Not this cave! I heard it's haunted by ghosts!
Gaston, don't believe everything you see on the internet.
But Gooey Guy told me that everything on the internet is 100% real.
In this cave, you ride on the wall in anti-gravity, making it so the waterfalls are literally above your head. Then you exit the cave with a jump, before tricking off an anti-gravity rock, and finally ending the anti-gravity section when you come back on the road. You then get on a giant mountain with twisty turns. You climb to the top of it, glide above a road, and land on it to get back to the starting line. The final lap starts like lap 2. Except instead of turning right at this spot to climb the mountain, you instead continue forward to glide from this point and land in a canyon. Here, you do last turn in anti-gravity without any walls. You then glide again, but this time you launch high in the air, so you get back to the starting line here too. This is how the track ends. For the Wonderflower effect, a rock slide starts on the mountain, with boulders rolling everywhere. Meanwhile, the skybox goes from day to sunset. I think this could make for a very exciting and climactic finale for the Mushroom Cup, to let the player know that we're only getting crazier and more intense from now on. And with that, the first cup in the game is complete. Okay, so I'm Captain Ribbon from the future, and at the time I'm typing this, there was an announcement for the Nintendo Switch 2 today, including some footage for what seems to be Mario Kart 9. And it looks like I predicted that a track like this would be in the game, given the course that was shown. So yay! Give me a cookie! Now, let's move on to the Flower Cup. Since it's the second cup, it would be a pretty easygoing and welcoming cup, though this cup is still the second one, not the first one. Usually, The second half of this cup, and especially the final track, is where the game starts to pick up on the difficulty and originality, while the first half on the cup is generally a bit more basic. Sometimes it's arranged differently. For example, the DS Flower Cup has two ambitious tracks that have become fan favorites that are sandwiched between two more basic tracks. And the Super Mario Kart Flower Cup, well, it's retro, and it fits your favorite Flower Cup. Well, Grookey says you're old.
Your generation is so sensitive, Mario Kart 7.
Your generation doesn't even know how to fly, so cope and save, boomer.
But overall, this should go like this, starting off with two welcoming tracks before picking up and getting more climactic with the second half of the cup, and have the final track be kind of a difficulty spike to let the player know that from there,
Things are gonna get crazy!
Circuit?
But before this, we have to talk about the obligatory Mario circuit. Obviously, this will be a generic track compared to the three others, so I can't see this track being in any other spot than the first one in the Flower Cup. Even if Mario Kart 64 had its Mario circuit at the end of the Flower Cup, while Mario Kart Double Dash and 7 had it as the second Flower Cup track, and Mario Kart DS literally put it in the third Star Cup slot between two ambitious fan favorites, the first slot in the Flower Cup is still the best place for these kinds of tracks. Obviously, since Mario circuits generally have a simple, natural theme, it wouldn't be so logical to put it after a track that's more ambitious, like Mario Kart 7 did for whatever reason. But it can still be a step up from the other Mario circuits. We start with this straightaway in the forested canyon. Then you get on an anti-gravity pod and do a loop-de-loop. That allows you to enter Princess Peach's castle. You go through two small rooms while crossing a bridge above the throne room. Then you get a second loop-de-loop to go back down. This allows you to actually enter the throne room, where you can trick off the staircase. You then get on a grassy path with trick ramps and pipes to avoid. There is also a grass shortcut here. After this, you jump on a windy road above the sea thanks to a boost panel. Some parts of the road are trickable, and you end up jumping into an anti-gravity green pipe. Here, there are half pipes, trick ramps, and twisty turns, a bit like in Warp Pipe Canyon. At the end of this section, you glide off the pipe to go back into the forested canyon, finishing the gap. The Wonder Flower effect would be the most ambitious one yet. It starts the famous Piranha Plants on Parade effect from Super Mario Bros. Wonder. There are Piranha Plants coming out of various decoration elements, all singing a remix of the Piranha Plant song playing in the second level from Super Mario Bros. Wonder.
I like it better with Nightcore personally.
There are also Piranha Plants that walk on the ground and that you have to avoid as well. Fire Piranha Plants also come out of the pipes in the grass section after Peach's castle. This would be a simple track, but the Wonder Flower effect would make it stand out and still keep the player excited for the rest of the cup.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
Do you know what we probably all love in the Mario Kart franchise? Courses where you race through places from your everyday life that are turned into a racetrack, where anything that is usually something that is perfectly normal becomes a wacky obstacle or trickable ramp. The best example is Coconut Mall. This track perfectly captures the bustling and energetic feeling of the mall, but still adapts it to Mario Kart. The escalators become an entire gimmick that forces you to watch closely which one is going up so you won't get slowed down. Then, we all know city parking can be a hassle sometimes, especially in crowded places. Well, Nintendo takes that little slice of everyday life and turns it into a section for Coconut Mall with moving cars to avoid. Then, shopping malls can sometimes feel like true mazes, where you don't even know where the shop or the restaurant you're searching for is. Well, Nintendo captures this feeling too, by adding a lot of split paths to the track, one of them even being a hidden shortcut that can be really hard to pull off. And that's not the only track following this idea. Daisy Cruiser, Sunshine Airport, or Super Bell Subway are all tracks that take an everyday life location and turn it to a racetrack, using anything that can be found in these places to make them cool gimmicks and make for exciting races. Obviously, we must have a track like this in Mario Kart 9's Retro Selection. It's a staple in the franchise at this point, and a theater track sounds like the perfect location for Mario Kart 9 track. First, I think most people have been to a theater at least once in their lives, so we can easily make an image of these places in our minds. In my case, the theaters I've been to often have escalators, a lot of rooms that are sometimes placed in a bit of a weird way, restrooms that are literally never cleaned properly, and the whole place smells like popcorn, which by the way is an overrated food. So with those small elements, we can already start to build a track based on those gimmicks, and it will have a mild Mario Odyssey theming. This theater will be located in New Donk City, and it will be sponsored by the Crazy Cap brand, because not only there's a theater in New Donk City where you can get 2 months by entering into a movie, but it's also said in-game that Crazy Cap used to be a theater brand. Now let's talk about the layout. Crazy Cap Theater would be a section-based track. You start the race by entering the theater in a straightaway. Here, there are 2 escalators, one making you go faster and the other slowing you down. You then go forward until you enter the first room. You then enter a movie by taking a jump into it. The first movie is a western. You have some tight turns in the desert until you get to race on the train tracks. You have to be careful, because if you're not fast enough, the train will hit you. Then you exit the movie and then you enter another corridor. You get through 2 escalators before entering a room with a food shop, except the popcorn and cheese machine are broken, and as a result, there are oversized popcorn chunks everywhere, and there are also cheese puddles that slow you down. After this, you enter another movie. This time, it's a movie with dinosaurs in a jungle. You start with an underwater section where you get through some sharp turns. But if you have mushroom, instead of jumping in the water, you can jump and trick on the water dinosaur's back to use it as a shortcut. You then get to avoid a giant Noshi that is trying to stomp you before exiting the movie. You then start the final section by entering the restroom. Here, you have to avoid slippery water that slows you down a bit. You then get on another corridor with a final escalator. You enter the third movie. This time, it's a science fiction movie. You start with an anti-gravity section on a blue rocky planet with some split paths. You then perform a jump in a spaceship before gliding out of the movie. Then, you go back to the spot with the escalator, except you take another path to exit the theater and finish the race. And for the Wonder Flower effect, the popcorn machine explodes, so popcorn chunks start falling everywhere on the track like meteorites, and you have to avoid them. This would make for an exciting track to have early in the game, and a great take on the obligatory wacky track by having you go through a wide variety of biomes and all the obstacles a theater could have.
Oh, I just can't wait to be
Koopas!
If there's one biome that is way too underrepresented in the Mario series, that would clearly be the Savannah. This is kinda surprising, because this is a biome that is represented quite a lot in culture, but there are only a couple of levels taking place in a Savannah in Mario games. There are 2 levels taking place here in Super Mario 3D World, a world based on it in Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, which is admittedly a fairly big representation considering it's 1/6 of the game, but also bearing in mind that this is generally a game that takes place in the jungle, so since in the real world many African jungles and savannas can be found in the same region, you'd probably expect to find a bit more representation for this biome in the Donkey Kong franchise. But then, in Super Mario Bros. Wonder, the first world had a unique twist. Instead of just being a typical grassland, most of it actually takes place in a savanna. In those levels, there are a lot of enemies inspired from wild animals, like squirrels, rhinos, and hippos. There are even baobab trees that can grow very high if you ground pound them. And since this Mario Kart game has a gimmick inspired from Mario Wonder, I think it's time for the Savannah biome to finally get some justice from the Mario Kart games. Since this track would be a bit simpler, this would be a lap-based track. I'll show you the layout now. You start the track on a straightaway surrounded by baobab trees. Then you cross a roundabout that goes around a giant Koopa shell. After this, you go on a bridge above a big lake. Here, there is a section with two split paths that are an anti-gravity section that goes into a chain chomp shaped rock.
Isn't Chain Chomp homophobic? It says so on the digital circuits subreddit.
Gaston, I think you should really learn that Bubble is not a chain chomp. In this lake, you can see giant cheeps and moray eels jumping above the chain chomp shaped rock. After this bridge section, you climb giant baobab trees in a plateau. Here, you have to jump from one tree to another using boost panels while rowing on branches. After this, you start climbing a mountain where you can see elephants and giraffes in the background. There are also boulders that you should avoid. After this canyon section, you glide until you land in a pond, where there is a brief underwater section before you go back on the land and finish the lap. So yeah, this is a bit of a simpler track. But what makes it a bit more special is the Wonder Flower effect that will activate on the final lap. Because this Wonder Flower makes the whole track freeze. The pond and the lake freeze too. The whole track becomes slippery. Stalactites start falling from the chain chomp shaped rock ceiling. The baobabs are frozen or even destroyed, and thus, in this section, you'd be forced to go through the frozen ground. But that wouldn't be easy, as hoppers appeared here due to the colder weather and are rolling everywhere. The boulders have broken, revealing to be hoppers as well. If you touch one, they make you bounce back, just like they do in Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and the whole skybox turns to night. This track would be the perfect calm before storm that is just what we need after the previous track, but with a difficulty step up too. Perfect to prepare the player for the final track.
Something is wrong with me!
Despite its short length, Bowser's Fury was a very enjoyable adventure, with fun puzzles, challenging platforming phases, and a surprisingly free gameplay that hints more towards a complete open world than any other Mario platformer. So it would be the perfect game to turn into a track for the final slot in the Flower Cup. First, this game has 3 islands with each one having a specific theme, which is perfect to make a section-based track. Then, it has a special gimmick that regularly launches during the game, like the Wonder Flower from Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which makes it a perfect gimmick to use as a Wonder Flower effect in the final lap. And that gimmick would make this track feel really climactic as the final course in the Flower Cup, making it the biggest storm in the game yet. So I'm gonna show you the layout immediately this time. We start the track in the lakeside zone on a grassy island. You first take some turns on a beach before climbing a mountainous island. You climb it by jumping on small platforms until you get on an anti-gravity floating U-turn ramp that does a cutback to jump on the summit of the island. After a small turn, you jump on some floating crates, but if you fall off them, instead of being saved by Lag 2, you take a slower route. Both this route and the crate route converge into a path that goes into a canyon. You jump off this small bouncing pad to get on a dirt path that goes in a tower. You exit it from the ceiling in anti-gravity to ride on a zero-gravity wall that does 2 cutbacks before you get shot out of a cannon to the ruins zone, where the second section begins. When you cross the section 2 line, rain starts to pour down. You start the section on a small floating castle before jumping on a blue owl. You then jump again on an anti-gravity tower. You have to circle this tower 3 times before jumping on a rocky island where you guide to another castle. There is a boost panel that lets you trick several times before jumping into a spinning anti-gravity wheel made of conveyor belts that can either make you go to the left or to the right. When this part ends, you have to time your jump well to land on this tower, where you go through another batch of boost panels before getting shot out of a cannon to go to the wasteland zone, where the final section begins. Of course, this is where the Wonderflower effect activates too, and I think you probably know what it is now. Yep, Fury Bowser awakens and starts attacking the track. The skybox turns into a very dark grey, and the music becomes heavy metal while a thunderstorm starts. Fire meteors will fall on the road, while he will also shoot fireballs you have to dodge. Some rocks will also fall on the track and can destroy parts of the road. The layout for the final section starts on a rocky road, but then, after crossing a very fragile bridge, you go on another anti-gravity ramp that does a cutback before gliding to a rocky cliff. Here, there are gaping holes in the ground, so you have to be careful not to fall off. Then, you jump into a clear pipe like the one in Cooper Cape. This clear pipe is surrounded with lava.
No, we're not gonna jump into boiling, scorching hot there, 5-0!
Calm down, Gaston. This clear pipe is obviously gonna be closed. We're not doing a Mario Kart 7 Wii remake here.
Hey, just because you're nostalgia blind doesn't mean a kill pipe shouldn't be submerged.
No. We won't argue about this. My Cooper Cape is objectively the best, and the people who think otherwise are the ones being nostalgia blind. Let me go on a rant about why you, Mario Kart 8, and the non-canon game ruined Cooper Cape. First, the clear pipe not being submerged conveyed a sense of magic, like in those aquariums. Anyway, the clear pipe will have half pipes and fire gazers to avoid. These fire gazers can be horizontal, but also vertical, like in 3DS Bowser Castle. After this part, you jump in another rocky island. Here, you jump from one rocky island to another, with some split paths too, until you get to a gliding section. It takes you to another rocky cliff with anti-gravity where the road twists. This way, you can race near Fury Bowser while his shell squirts ink puddles at the road. Then, you jump on a balanced platform, then a rotating platform, before getting back on a rocky island, and finally ending the race on a beach, with the giant bell just near the finish line. When you cross it, it activates, and the track's appearance is back to normal. Yay Clap Cat would be the perfect track to end the Flower Cup. The variety in scenery, the harder layout, the adventurous feeling of this course, and the chaotic atmosphere of the final lap makes this track the biggest storm in the game yet. Tread the pier, know that from now on.
Things are gonna get crazy!
And with that, the Flower Cup is now complete. Let's move on with the next cup, which is not the Star Cup, but the Egg Cup. So for short, I predict that Mario Kart 9 will not have 8 cups, but 12 cups, 6 Retro cups and 6 Nitros. The reason is simple. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe had 96 tracks and 24 cups, which was more than double the amount of tracks in any other Mario Kart base game, not counting DLCs. So I think it would be kinda underwhelming if the next Mario Kart game just had 32 tracks in launch. But at the same time, having 96 courses again would be absolutely overkill if that was the amount of tracks in the base game. So I think the best way to compromise is simple. Just add 4 more cups to the base game, 2 more Retros and 2 more Nitros. That way, it doesn't feel too anticlimactic, as we get 48 tracks in total, which is the same amount of tracks you have in the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe base game. So the Egg Cup is going to be the third cup. Since it wraps up the first half of the Nitro selection, I think it should be the first peak in terms of ambition. This way, when the player finishes it, they would be even more exciting to play the unlockable cups. Because yes, I planned the 3 last cups of the Retro and Nitro selection to be unlockable by getting a trophy in all of the previous cups. So yeah, while this is still gonna be a cup that's not too difficult, I decided to put some of the more ambitious tracks here, a bit like Mario Kart Wii's Star Cup for example.
Hello, I like money.
Let's start with another lap-changing track that is once again based on a specific Mario game at first, or should I say, a game series in this franchise, WarioWare. You see, this is a series with a very unique concept. For short, these games have a succession of levels where you take down several minigames one after the other. These games only last 3 to 4 seconds, and therefore this can make a game of WarioWare really hectic. But the reason I chose to make WarioWare track in particular is because this game series has a lore that is surprisingly rich compared to the premise. It has a lot of different characters with various personalities and funny quirks, and locations that are really distinct and will make for a great Mario Kart track. Since the WarioWare games happen in Diamond City, this could almost feel like a Mario Kart Tour City track in the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass. So I think it would make sense to have Diamond City be a lap-changing track. You start on a road surrounded by various buildings. You start by going near 9Volt's house before turning left to enter Club Sugar. Here, you have a road in anti-gravity that does cutbacks and loop-de-loops with boost panels, half-pipes, and big jumps. Then, you enter Orbulon's pink ship where you do a U-turn with anti-gravity boosts and a half-pipe. You enter from the right eye and exit by jumping out of the left eye. You then pass Dribble and Spitz's taxi station before finishing the first lap. The second lap starts by passing 9Volt's house once again, but this time you turn right to climb a haunted mountain. After passing a graveyard, you enter Ashy's mansion. Wait, what are you doing here, Gaston?
I'm removing from his paws, and she wants to tell me it's my spoon! Ah!
Gaston, I asked Ashy not to mess up with magic, you're going to be fine. So, you enter Ashy's mansion from the balcony door before going downstairs and exiting it from the regular door. You then go through the swamp, where you must go on patches of dirt to avoid slipping everywhere. After this, you jump back on the road until you enter Cat and Anna's dojo. Here, you start on a road with twisted turns and lots of opportunities to fall off. Then, you have a room with spiky traps that progressively open up, but if you roll on a patch of road that was above a spiky trap, it immediately breaks and you fall off, so you have to be careful. Then, you enter a very short anti-gravity section to climb a bridge that's tilted at 90 degrees. You then jump out of the dojo and go back on the road. You pass 9Volt's house again to finish lap 2 backwards. You start lap 3 with a straightaway, but eventually you glide above the sea. This takes you to Dr. Krygel's lab, where you must go on the conveyor belt that makes you go faster in anti-gravity, a bit like in Toad's Factory or Singapore Speedway. You then jump in Penny's lab, where you go in an underwater tube before being shot out of a giant cannon. You go back on the road and you glide above the Diamond City Stadium with rings that let you get airtime. You end the track by passing the locals of WarioWare Inc. before crossing the finish line. The Wonder Flower effect would be a bit peculiar. Sometimes a micro game will interrupt the race. If you win it, you get a bonus item. This course would be an excellent way to step up the difficulty and ambition in the track design to make the players excited for the rest of the cup.
I guess this is before manners were invented.
Obviously, you gotta have some Super Mario Odyssey themed tracks in the game too. After all, this game is heavily regarded by a lot of Mario fans to be a masterpiece and one of the best Mario games ever. I was even surprised to discover how well its popularity aged 7 years after its original release. So I'm not gonna give this game one track, but 2 tracks in Mario Kart 9. The first track is gonna be based off of Fossil Falls, one of the first levels in the game. On the surface, it kinda seemed weird to put one of the first level in Super Mario Odyssey almost halfway through the Nitro selection, but this region doesn't have actual people living there as far as we know, a very wild atmosphere, various enemies, and a T-Rex you can control. Therefore, I think we can save this level for an Egg Cup track. Plus, Yoshi is a dinosaur, so it's nice to have a dinosaur-themed course in this cup. And since this track will have a bit of a simpler layout than the 2 final tracks in the Egg Cup, it makes for a nice calm between 2 storms after the upbeat opening that was Diamond City. Let's get to the layout. Fossil Falls would be a gap-based track, as this is still a pretty simple level with not that much variety in the scenery or platforming, so making it a section-based or gap-changing track could make it drag on too much. You start the track with a short straightaway, but after this, the fun starts. As you turn right, the track already goes in an anti-gravity section. You go under a waterfall on a road that's now perpendicular to it while it's spinning up with boost panels, before taking a tight turn with a half pipe, then gliding above the waterfall to reach its summit. You then ride on the river against the current while having to avoid fossils and floating eggs. You exit the anti-gravity section as you go back on the land. Then, you also have to avoid a chain chomp that's trying to bite you. There are a lot of chain chomps in the original Fossil Falls level, and you even turn into one to beat the boss of this level, so I thought having a chain chomp here would make sense. Then, you ride on a dino's neck, before turning right to go into an anti-gravity section again. You then jump on a waterfall that you climb. You ride on another wall before jumping on rocks under the first waterfall on the track. You then take a last wide turn with boost panels before finishing the lap. The Wonder Flower effect would kinda be inspired by a specific level from Yoshi's Crafted World. You see, in this game, one of the two levels in the desert world starts with you passing a fossil. It awakens, turns into the Stegosaurus, and you have to escape it for the whole level. I think this could be the Wonder Flower effect for Fossil Falls too. Near the end, you could pass a giant chain chomp fossil. When you start the final lap, it could reform, turn into a chain chomp dinosaur, and basically attack you during the whole track by falling and destroying parts of the track, biting you by surprise, and sometimes rushing on the road, trying to hit the players a bit like the chain chomps in the OG N64 Rainbow Road. This would be simple tracks in terms of layout compared to the rest of the Egg Cup, but the theming would make it a lot more special and hectic. It could really be a great sequel to Shy Guy Falls while improving on the idea by having you go under the waterfalls as well.
It's so efficient! Carlos!
The next track is actually something that surprises me by the fact that it has never been an actual track in the Mario Kart franchise. I honestly think it could make for the most distinct water track in the whole franchise. Yes, even better than Cooper Cape. We honestly have a lot of very simplistic water tracks in the Mario Kart franchise. Sure, some of them, like Cooper Cape or Daisy Cruiser, are absolutely peak, but most of them are either held back from being top tier by a simple beach theme like Peach Beach from Double Dash, or by a layout that's too forgettable like Water Park from Mario Kart 8, completely wasting one of the most unique track ideas. So I think it's time for a change, and the idea of making the wacky track just like Crazy Cap Theater but with a water theme is perfect to have a more unique water track with an actually interesting layout. So, when you just wanna go out for a day in a place with water, where do you go? A beach? Too rehashed. A swimming pool? Why not? But I'd rather put this as a small section in an entire track later on. No, I think an aquarium is the perfect idea. Honestly, it's about time that we get a course like this, because just like Coconut Mall or Crazy Cat Theater, I think everyone has visited an aquarium at least once in their lives. Maybe you've been on a vacation to a coastal town and you decided to visit a famous aquarium located here, like the one at Monaco or Los Angeles. Or maybe you've been to a field trip with your class to a smaller aquarium too. Except if your teacher's last name is Frizzle. Whatever it was, I think everyone can easily have an image when trying to picture a visit to the aquarium. So this is a perfect location to make a wacky and unique track. You're probably gonna be surprised by this, but this is actually gonna be a lap-based track, because while there are undoubtedly a lot of ideas we can use for an aquarium-based track, the layout would just feel weird in a section track or changing lap track. since generally a visit to the aquarium is straightforward and you just exit near the entrance. So a lap-based track would capture the essence of a visit to the aquarium a bit better. This time, you start by entering the aquarium obviously. You pass the first tank in the corridor, but then, instead of following a realistic path, you jump into the tank. In this spot, there are water geysers you can trick off of, and cheap cheeps to avoid. Then, you enter a dark underwater tank. Here, there are moray eels that are trying to bite you and that you must avoid. A short part of this section is an anti-gravity. You then exit this cave by jumping out of a pipe and entering a polar-themed tank. You must do your best to stay on the slippery ice and jump from one block of ice to another while penguins are walking on the road, making it harder to navigate. Just like in Lake Cat, if you fall off the ice platforms, you're forced to take a longer path. Also, on one of the ice blocks, you can take a mushroom shortcut that's a bit hard to pull off. After this, the two paths converge and you temporarily go outside to go in a dolphin show tank. You ride on the walls in anti-gravity while having to avoid the dolphins that are jumping. There are also boost panels on the road as well. Then you go on a mandatory half pipe before entering the aquarium again. This time you dive in a tank with anemones. You must bounce on them in order not to fall off into the abyss. Then you take some turns before completely exiting the aquarium with the window. You can either trick off a normal ramp and finish the lap normally, or try to glide and take a shortcut on one of these water geysers. You then go back to the road to finish the lap. For the Wonderflower effect, Mrs. Frizzle appears and turns all the players into mussels. I'm obviously kidding. Actually, my idea would be that pipes come out of the walls. They blow colorful and bouncy bubbles into the aquarium. They can make you bounce back if you hit them, but you can also perform a big jump to take big shortcuts if you manage to land on them. This would easily make for the most memorable and unique water track in the whole Mario Kart franchise. So I really hope that we get a track with this theme in Mario Kart 9, and I'm sure that if we do, it's gonna be an instant fan favorite.
Peaches, 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 peaches.
So this track is gonna be one of the most ambitious ones in the whole Nitro selection. Since it caps off the first half of Nitro Cups, I think we should cross the halfway mark with a bang, just like Wave 3 of the Boost Course Pass ended with 3DS Rainbow Road, which is a very popular Rainbow Road at that. So the last track in the Egg Cup should be very climactic too. I decided to make it a giant neon megalopolis, kinda like Neo Bowser City from Mario Kart 7, but way more upbeat. At first, I wanted to make it a Waluigi track. The problem is that no matter the ideas I came up with, it was too similar to DS Waluigi Pinball. So after brainstorming ideas for a very long time, I had the idea of making it a Peach track. I mean, come on. She deserves better than just one fan favorite, one simple beach track, and two circuit tracks. And given her upbeat and cheerful personality, I'd say a track like that would almost feel like an idol concert in a bustling city like Las Vegas, Seoul, or Tokyo, which would fit her really well. The atmosphere would feel a bit like Singapore Speedway, but more epic. This would be a section-based track, making it an adventure, but also a final gauntlet for the first half in the game, keeping you excited for the 3 next Nitro Cups. You start by coming out of a giant dome before rushing into the city. You take 2 tight turns in anti-gravity while passing several buildings, and there is a shortcut you can take just here. Then, you jump on a pink anti-gravity road circling a giant cake that is referencing Peach's birthday cake from Mario Party. You can trick off a giant chocolate chunk on this cake before going back on the road. Here, you circle a giant Peach statue while rushing on a road with a lot of boost panels and half-pipes. You then jump on a water slide to start section 2. Here, you must take a lot of turns while having the rushing water make you go faster as a challenge. This water slide is located on a pool with a lot of artificial islands. Then, it turns out this pool is actually on the top of a luxury hotel. You rush down this hotel by riding on an artificial waterfall before falling into the sea. When you go back on the end, you climb another road with boost panels to go to an icy castle. Here, there are a lot of tight turns and an icy parkour with an optional glider section. Then, after this, you go on an anti-gravity road with a lot of twisted turns. At the end of it, you get shot out of a cannon to another part of the city to start the final section. You land on a tall building before immediately going into an anti-gravity zone again. Then, you jump into a theme park owned by Peach, and you go through a loop-de-loop with a lot of boost panels on a roller coaster. Then, you have a part with twisty conveyor belts where you must try and stay on the one that makes you go faster. You then go on a twisted building with half pipes and boost panels before gliding from it to go on a giant airplane. After bouncing on a pink mushroom, you go on top of another hotel, then on a mini boat surrounding it. Here, you can either take the normal route or a small shortcut that functions like the one in Mute City. And for the Wonderflower effects, I don't really have an idea actually. Let me think.
Hey Reboom, I think I might have an idea for it.
Oh, what is your idea, Gaston?
Well, 1 month ago, I went to a J-pop concert in Japan.
And did you like it?
Yes, it was amazing. And I think this could be the Wonderflower effect. We already have musical wonder effects in Super Mario Bros. Wonder after all.
Well, that's a great idea, Gaston. During the final lap, a scene could appear and a pop concert starts. The fans throw several items on the track while cheering and singing. The idol who is performing also makes giant music notes fall on the road while singing, just like the ones in Melody Motherwell. This would be an epic finale to the Egg Cup, but not too climactic, so it's perfect. It lets the players be satisfied to be halfway through and excited to discover the rest of the game without stealing the show for Rainbow Road. And our Egg Cup is complete. Honestly, if this Nitro selection I'm making turned out to be a reality for the next game, either this or the Special Cup would be my favorite Nitro Cup. It's just the perfect way to hook up players halfway through, just like Wave 3 of the Booster Course Pass did. Things started to get very ambitious with the previous cup. The next cup is gonna be the Bullet Bill Cup. This is gonna be a bit like the Egg Cup, as it's part of that 2-cup transition between the easier first part of the game and the very hard and ambitious second part of the game. But the Bullet Bill Cup is also gonna have a step up in difficulty with more ambitious and unique obstacles in its track as well. As you probably know, in Wave 5 of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass, the Feather Cup ended with a very peculiar but also very creative track. A course set in a bathroom where the player characters are shrunken down and every element you could find in a bathroom can be a possible road element, obstacle or ramp. It was one of the most ambitious track concepts ever. The GBA Ribbon Road remake already kinda did that, but most of the toy stuff was in the background. Here, you trick off sponges and bath bombs, you get blown away by a fan, you can trick off the sink and find secret paths among the cleaning supplies in the room. This is an amazing track, and I really want them to do more with track concepts like this. So of course I had to put a track like this in my Nitro selection. And for the room I took inspiration from, well, first we had a shower room, then a bathroom, so the next logical step is a kitchen based track. I think we could go even further and make this a kitchen track specifically themed around breakfasts. You know, this breakfast during the summer when you were a child, when you didn't have to think about school or homework anymore, and you could just chill out, have a big breakfast, then take your time to eat it, and then go play outside or in a swimming pool during a sunny day. Well, this track would give the same feeling. It will be a simple lap-based track. It starts with a straightaway, but then there is a boost ramp. You jump off it to go on a boiler. Here, you must manage to land on one of the eggs to trick off of them, then land on the frying pan to use it as a drying pan. Actually, scratch this, to use it like a Banshee mushroom. Then you go into an anti-gravity bowl of fruit where you must avoid some bananas and strawberries, then climb the oranges to continue the race. After this, you jump on a toaster to use it like a glider ramp. It makes you fly to the fridge. You avoid some soda bottles before going in an underwater section in orange juice. You then climb a road made of bacon before bouncing on an egg, then gliding on the kitchen table. You start by triggering off a ramp that leads to a stack of pancakes, where you must avoid the maple syrup that slows you down. Then you go into a bowl of cereal where any of the cereal can be used as a ramp. After going under a block of cheese, you must avoid spilled jam that also slows you down, before climbing on the aforementioned block of cheese to guide to the edge of the table. After this, you go on a huge ramp that takes you back to the start. The Wonderflower effect would be a bit special. It kicks in on lap 2, because during the second lap, people come to the table to have breakfast, and in lap 3, they start playing outside, and the kitchen is a complete mess with obstacles everywhere. Plus, it's kind of the opposite of the OG Sunset Wilds. It starts as a sunrise themed track, but as the race goes on, it slowly transitions to daytime. This track would have a simple layout, but with all the varied obstacles it features, it would probably be an exciting way to start the second half in the game.
Welcome to my underground lair.
I originally thought of making a track that takes place in Rocky Mountains with a purple color scheme. The problem? I couldn't find an idea to make a track that's unique enough. Then I had a cool idea. I decided to keep the purple mountains, but instead of making the focus of the course these purple mountains, make a track where the focus is a giant cavern. This will be a simpler lap-based track. Let's get to the layout. We start the track with 2 tight turns featuring half pipes. Then you take a big jump into a giant canyon. Here, there are giant holes you can avoid by rolling normally or using half pipes. You then go on the summit of the mountain before jumping near a cliff to enter the big cave, which, like I said, is the true focus of the trek. The first part is the glider section, where you have to trick off tall pillars to stay in the air. Then you go in a room that's full of lava.
That looks like my birthplace, except there are no wither skeletons.
Here, there are a lot of boost panels and half pipes. The major part of this zone is an anti-gravity. You then fly to a higher part of the cave to enter a nice room. You have to time your jumps well on the ice blocks in this part. Finally, there are 2 last big jumps before you exit the cave. You then go down in the canyon to end the gap. There would also be spikes throwing a lot of spiky balls all over the track. The Wonderflower effect would have the track collapse more and more during the earthquake. As a result, if you aren't fast enough, you fall off, and at the end, the mountain would majorly be destroyed.
Where's it at? The swamp! That's a habitat!
Just like the previous track I talked about, there won't be a lot of things to say about this one. Admittedly, it's more of a failed track. This was actually the last idea I came up with for this video. I've been debating about what the third track in the Bullet Bill Cup would be for a long time. I wanted something with a bit of a forested theme, but still unique enough. After rambling for a long time, I decided to choose something a bit peculiar. I chose to make a track based on that one level in Super Mario Galaxy where you float around a poison swamp with some grassy isles. As you may expect, it will be a short lap based track, to have this one be a calm before storm. You start in a canyon on a tilted path before jumping on a grassy island. Here, you have to take some turns that vary in smoothness while making sure not to fall into the poison. Then, you start in an anti-gravity section when going on a big bridge that does a corkscrew before going on another island. This time, you progressively climb a tree with tight turns and roundabouts. When you reach the summit, you go to a mountainous island. Here, you have to rush with speed boosts on a road that has a lot of gaping holes in it. Then, you turn right on another grassy island. For the last part of the track, you have 2 options. You can either go on a normal boost ramp and jump 2 times to go back into the canyon, or go on the glider ramp to go into the canyon by gliding upwards. And the lap ends like this. For the Wonderflower effect, piranha creepers start coming out of the holes. They block certain pathways and create new anti-gravity pathways. They can also eat some parts of the road. There would also be a song to be sort of follow-up to Mario Circuit, which had a piranha plants on parade wonder effect. This would be a bit of a simple track, but with a laid-back atmosphere and a very challenging layout, Poison Swamp could make for a good calm before storm type of track.
What is the sound of Riz?
At first, when making this retro selection, I wanted to end the Bullet Bill Cop with a track based on Peanut Park from Super Mario Sunshine, to make an actually good theme park track instead of the very underwhelming water park. But then, and when I turned Waluigi Megalopolis into Peach's Megalopolis, I added a roller coaster and water slide section to the track, so in the end, it was kind of what I had in mind for a theme park track, so I had to scrap it. I tried to make a theme park track for Waluigi instead, with a theme that could fit him, but I just couldn't find an idea that wouldn't resemble Peach's Megalopolis too much. Then I had another idea. Since I pictured that Waluigi's theme park would be dangerous with a lot of complex machinery, I remembered that in Mario Party 3 there was a board that was pretty much that. It's the final board in the game, Waluigi's Island. On this board, there are a lot of branching paths that lead to different islands, each with a particular gimmick called trap. One of them has a bomb with a timer that goes down every time someone lands on an event space. And when it reaches 0, it explodes and any player who's currently on the island loses all of their coins. Another island has spaces that are all of the same kind, but they change every turn. Another one has pitfalls and pipes everywhere. Even the scenery features a lot of weird machines and islands that all look completely artificial. And to top it off, there is a dangerous feeling music playing on the board that fits Waluigi and Wario really well. With all of this combined, this makes Waluigi Island track the perfect way to cap off the Bullet Bill Cup, and it will be a track with gap changing. Since Mario Party boards like this one have a lot of branching paths that end up going back to the starting spot, it made sense for this track to have changing gaps, because in the end, that's kinda what a Mario Kart course like this is as well. You start the track on a turquoise road, then you turn right. Then you go to an island with colored tiles that regularly change from green to red and red to green. If you roll on them, you fall off and you have to take a longer path. The paths converge on a melee road that has a lot of boost panels, but sometimes these boost panels turn into guiding paths. After this, you have to avoid going on a troll path because it sends you back instead of being a shortcut. Then, the road splits into two windy anti-gravity paths. You end gap 1 by going back on the turquoise road where the two anti-gravity paths converged by jumping out of this anti-gravity section. Gap 2 has you turn right instead of left. You start on a peculiar island. In the center of it, there are a lot of different items, and whatever object is shown on this giant screen will appear all over the road. It can be ball bombs, electric pads, boost panels, or bananas. You then go in a giant anti-gravity pipe with running water and electricity you have to avoid. Except the water is actually running in the opposite direction to the one you have to go. Therefore, it slows you down instead of making you go faster. Then you jump out of the pipe to finish Gap 2. Gap 3 starts on the same island as Gap 2, but then you take on a different path. You encounter a roundabout with a very special trap. If the item that's shown on the screen is thrown on the bomb, it will explode. Then you have a pitfall section. This time, rolling on one of these pitfalls make its counter go down, but the other pitfall's counter goes up. So you have to plan the path you chose thoroughly. Finally, there is a section with 3 branching paths, all littered with cardboard piranha plants. One path has a lot of boost panels and basic layout, but it's also really long. Another one has a bit more turns, but it's shorter. The last one is very hard to stay on, but it's very short and straightforward. The 3 paths converge in a road that leads to a glider ramp, ending the track. And for the Wonderflower effect, the track turns to a purple skybox and the Waluigi boat starts shooting cannonballs everywhere, except those cannonballs all have a different effect. Some of them just explode, some of them destroy a part of the track, or they can even make item boxes fall around them. This track would be perfect finale for the Bullet Bill Cup. It allows the player to realize how the difficulty has gone up, making them excited to discover the challenges that we have to face in the last two cups, while still giving that feeling that there is something more for you and that this is far from being the final challenge. And with that, we completed the Bullet Bill Cup. Now we're off to the Star Cup. While it isn't the last one, it's often where things start to get seriously ambitious and climactic. It's usually either the best cup of the game or the second best next to the Special Cup, and many Star Cups have grown to become fan favorites in the Mario Kart franchise, like the Mario Kart Wii one or the Mario Kart 8 one. So I'm keeping the most ambitious and climactic ideas for the Special Cup. I'm still gonna try to make the Star Cup climactic as well, to make the player excited to discover the last cup.
Why do all of Dawn's old friends call her D?
Gay.
Opening our Star Cup is the obligatory DK track in the game. You know, even though many DK tracks can be quite simple sometimes, they're always enjoyable with a nice atmosphere, varied obstacles, and fun layouts. So of course I'm gonna keep this trend alive. But I decided to use a theme that was never used for a DK track until now. You see, Donkey Kong never got a track that's not based off of a jungle or a snow mountain. So I think it's about time for a change. I decided to make a tempo track this time. It could still have some traces of jungle parts, but the main focus of the track would be a giant temple built to honor the Great Banana. It would be a lap-based track, but given how long this one turned out to be, I decided to pull off a Wario Colosseum move and make this track 2 laps long instead of 3 laps long. We start the track in a dirt path located inside a jungle, which is pretty usual for a DK track. But then you turn right, and that's when the fun begins. After going around the roundabout, you climb stairs to go on top of ruins. You take a couple of turns with some opportunities to fall off, and you also jump underwater for a short time while avoiding pillars. Then, while taking some more tight turns, you go higher and higher before finally going inside the temple. You start by a room full of tiles. You should be careful here, because they electrocute any player who stay on them for too long. Then, there's a room with falling pillars. They start tipping over when you approach the boost ramp that is located on them, so you have to orient your jumps well. After this room, you start gliding between 2 walls. These walls are shooting arrows, so you must watch out to avoid getting hit and falling. After this, you climb again before starting an anti-gravity section where you go down at full speed. You must watch out for the walls and the boulders that are falling in this spot while trying to go on the boost panels. After this, you glide again, except this time you enter a portal that takes you outside the temple. You land on the dirt path you started the race on, ending the lap. For the Wonder Flower effect, the track changes its atmosphere. You're teleported to a celestial version of it where there are more opportunities to fall off the track. The skybox also changes to a lighter shade of blue. This track would be the perfect way to start the Star Cup because it's pretty difficult, but not as crazy as the courses that will come next.
Hey Boom, wanna hear a joke that Rookie told me?
What is it?
Well look! Your hair is sparkling like a diamond, like a kaleidoscope.
I'm not sure that I get it.
Well, I'm calling you Diamond Kaleidoscope. DK!
Gaston!
Well, you can't play music with a piece of paper!
Next is a course that will be based on the game Paper Mario the Origami King. You may be surprised by this, because the fan favorite from the Paper Mario franchise is easily the 1000-Year Door. But the Origami King has much more creative visuals with a nice color palette, great character development, a good battle system, and varied themes in its worlds that amplify the adventurous feeling of this game. With the unique art style of modern Paper Mario games, I feel like this would be the perfect game from this series to adapt into a track. By making it a section-based track, it could really feel like a true adventure all the way through. With the 5 worlds all having themes that vary a bit, the track could really take you into all sorts of biomes. The track starts in open plains, but after the first few turns, you climb a tree to go on an anti-gravity bridge. After some twisty turns, you glide to Toad Town, where you pass by the main location visiting this place in Paper Mario the Origami King. Then, you jump off the roof of a cable car station to get shot out of a cannon towards Arden Mountain. Here, after a couple of turns, you jump on the water before being pulled forward by the water currents. You have to avoid a lot of floating rocks while also managing some tight turns. Then, you have to go through a roundabout where you must avoid getting too close to the center, or else you'll get sucked in a giant whirlpool. After this, you ride down the river in anti-gravity at full speed. You then jump out of the river to get to Shogun Studios, where you start section 2. Here, you go into a giant temple. Then after a couple of turns, you glide into Sweet Paper Valley. Here, you have to avoid giant rocks while managing some tighter turns. You continue to do this in Breezy Tunnel before entering the desert. There's a part with an oasis, and the sand pits you have to avoid falling into. Then you enter Shroom City at night, where you pass through several houses and bazaars before entering the hotel. You trick off a giant statue in the pool before taking a couple of sharp turns in the corridors. You then start gliding at full speed towards the sea. You start on the tropical island before jumping to enter Diamond Island. Here, you pass by the 3 temples of this island before climbing an icy peak in anti-gravity, where you have to be careful not to fall off. You then go on a road at full speed above the icy mountains to glide out of Diamond Island and enter the sea tower. Here, there are a lot of sharp turns that you have to take, and you start section 3 just before entering a mysterious portal. That portal takes you to Floating Island in Shangri Spa. You take a couple of tight turns where you get to see a sea of clouds and pass by a hot spring, while also going into the main building. Then, you go on a bridge high above the clouds. You then jump into a hot spring, but if you go on the bubbles, you can trick off of them and go faster. You then go on a small island with shortcuts you can take by tricking off those fountains if you manage to orient your jumps well. Then, you guys to the Origami Castle. Here, you enter an anti-gravity phase where you climb a roll of folded paper with twisty and tight turns. You then perform a very long left turn on a road with a lot of boost panels before finishing the race. For the Wonderflower effect, some parts of the track would start to fold while others unfold. Therefore, there are more opportunities to fall off, but also opportunities for split paths. In fact, why not have the paper Skyfalls too, to make the final lap feel more climactic? This track could easily become a fan favorite to carry the Star Cup, with its singing and its varied layout. I'd be so happy if we got a track like this.
Then jump right into the lava.
Super Mario Odyssey is actually such an iconic game that I don't think one track to represent it is enough. I think it needs a second track in Mario Kart 9 if it's gonna have 48 Nitro courses. And among all the kingdoms we travel through in Mario Odyssey, the one with the most potential is easily Luncheon Kingdom. This is easily the most unique kingdom in the whole game. This is literally a kingdom in a sea of pink lava with a giant volcano and food that appears naturally. From a giant piece of meat to blocks of cheese, with tomatoes that can turn into fiery tomato sauce. But it also has Roman-style buildings and a town in the middle of all its food, where the inhabitants use this food to eat and celebrate an event based on food with a giant soup that is heated up by the volcano every year. That's easily the kingdom with the best theme in the entire game, so I think that after having a lot of food-based tracks being themed around sweets, it's about time for a change. Mount Volbono would be a section track to provide that adventurous feeling of starting in the town, then progressively climbing the volcano of Luncheon Kingdom. You start the track by turning left to jump 2 times on rocks to get on a giant wall made of Luncheon Kingdom's rock. Here, you take a couple turns before gliding on a purple cliff. You ride on this cliff with anti-gravity, and you must also avoid falling vegetables. You then speed up with boost panels, and you jump off this cliff to get into the town of Luncheon Kingdom. You avoid a couple of buildings in the town before starting section 2 by entering a mysterious building. You jump jump on several platforms with paths that end up splitting, and you also have to avoid falling into the lava.
You know I'm a guest. Lava doesn't affect me.
Then, you come out of the building before entering a cave in anti-gravity. There are a lot of half-pipes and twisty turns. In the cave, there's also a part where you bounce on eggs. You then climb the cave until coming out of it. After this, you jump on rotating circular platforms above the lava, a bit like the gear section in Tick-Tock Clock. After that, you jump on one of the volcano's cliffs to start the final section. On the volcano, there are a lot of vegetables falling like boulders. You start it by jumping from rocky platform to rocky platform. Then you go on a couple of rocky islands with paths that split before converging on another island. After this, you take a couple of sharp turns on carrots above the lava from the volcano. Then you start gliding, and you can see the whole canyon before your eyes. You have a short section on a giant canyon above it with a half pipe and a couple of boost panels. Then you glide again above the town until landing on the platform where you started the trek. You end the race by crossing the starting line again. And for the Wonderflower effect, the sky turns red with red clouds as tomato sauce rains on the track and meatball comets start falling, adding obstacles to the third section, and especially to the final guiding part that really needed them. This track could easily become a fan favorite in the game, with its unique theme, its difficult layout, and its various obstacles.
This forest has a scary history.
This track is a bit peculiar. Actually, this wasn't directly my idea for a track. Once I was watching a video from the Mario YouTuber Albert Ores. Go subscribe to her, by the way, she makes amazing videos. And she talked about the idea of a track taking place in a haunted barnyard. And I absolutely love the idea. Imagine a farm track like Moo Moo Meadows, except the weather is cloudy, there is fog everywhere, no signs of life beyond dry bones and a lot of blues that you can see throughout the whole race, and the grass is desaturated.
Okay, now, I use the next place to finish that segment.
This would be a great idea to make a farm track that could stand out compared to Moo Moo Farm or Moo Moo Meadows, two very basic tracks. And it will be a app-changing tracks, since given the ideas I had for it, this type of track just fits it better. You start the track on a short straightaway before turning right, then left, then right again, to give you a bit of time to get used to the scary atmosphere of this track. Then you enter an enclosure. This enclosure has a lot of twisty turns and a part with a roundabout that has a path in the middle. There is a huge shortcut potential here, but also quadrupedal dry bones that charge at you, and tombstones that can prevent you from pulling off a shortcut if you mistakenly hit them. After exiting the enclosure, you turn right before gliding over a river. This river has currents that are so powerful that you can't directly fight them. You must instead trick on the floating rocks to stay in the air until you land on this dirt path. You then first cross a bridge before entering a dark, muddy forest. You must stay on the small dirt aisles on the mud to avoid being slowed down. This is how the first lap ends. For lap 2, you first turn right, but then, instead of turning left, you turn right second time and start to climb a mountain. You must avoid some falling boulders during this part. Then, you enter a giant, haunted mine in anti-gravity. Here, there are a lot of twisty turns and some boost panels, but also a lot of opportunities to fall off. You can see a lot of ghosts trying to approach you here, and at the end of this mine section, you spill out of the mine to descend the dirt path with a lot of trickable ramps, before spinning through the muddy forest to go back to the starting line and finishing lap 2. But lap 3 is actually when things really start to get crazy. Instead of turning right, you turn left. You start going on an ascending road near a small cliff with a lot of boost panels to go faster. Then, as you start an anti-gravity section, you enter a barn, and it turns out this barn is haunted and turned into a giant psychedelic mess. The ghosts look way scarier in this barn. There are a lot of twisty turns and split paths while the background of this part is colorful and all the colors keep moving. Then, you jump on 2 floating rocks so you avoid falling into a green poison river. After this, you dive in green slime. Here, there are some slime geysers you can trick off. You then exit this green slime pond to discover the other side of the barn, a room with only grey fog to see. After a turn with half pipes, you start a mini-boss fight with Mr. I. You have to circle him 3 times to defeat him, while avoiding all the walls. After this, you enter a purple cloud where your whole control scheme is inverted, and left becomes right. At the end of this part, you go back on the normal road. You speed through boost panels until you exit the barn, and jump back on the dirt path to go back to the starting line and finish the race. For the effect, the whole road starts twisting horizontally, forcing you to regularly go in a snaking-like motion. This would easily make for a climactic finale for the Star Cup. Up to this point, no track in the game has been so dark, and being a difficulty peak as well, it will also be an epic transition to the Special Cup. And with that, the Star Cup is over. We finish our journey with the Special Cup. Until Mario Kart 7, the Special Cups used to be the epic and climactic finale to their games, having some of the most ambitious and unique tracks in the whole franchise. It peaked with Mario Kart Wii Special Cup, which is my all-time favorite cup in Mario Kart history. Sadly, since Mario Kart 7, their quality has gone downhill. The 3DS Special Cup isn't inherently bad, but DK Jungle feels more Star Cup worthy, and I think it should have been replaced with Neo Bowser City, on top of having an underwhelming Bowser Castle. Because of this, the Special Cup is too underwhelming to be a true finale, even with its very ambitious Rainbow Road. And don't get me started on Mario Kart 8 Special Cup. How do you actually manage to be even worse than the fucking Super Mario Kart Special Cup after a Star Cup with 4 amazing tracks and that ended with Mount Wario, which was such an epic final track that could only hype the player up for the final cup? Please! Yes, Cloudtop Cruise is such a banger with a climactic atmosphere, a varied scenery and an epic music, but the 3 other tracks just have nothing to do in a Special Cup. They aren't awful per se, but they don't feel climactic or unique enough to be in the final cup. Why would I be excited for a basic desert track, a Rainbow Road that just feels toxic and not magical, and a Bowser Castle that is just way too messy after a cup that ended with Electrodrome and Mount Wario back to back? So for my Special Cup, I'm gonna try to have tracks that are actually unique and climactic to have this final cup feel special! Yes, special is the fucking name of the
Space adventure, it's an adventure in space!
Okay, you're probably gonna be surprised by this next track. I'm gonna make the bold choice of starting the Special Cup with a crossover track. I mean, after Mario Kart 7 and kinda Mario Kart 8 if we include the Booster Course Pass, I can't really see a universe where we wouldn't get some crossover in Mario Kart games, but I think that instead of milking the franchises we already know about, it would be an interesting choice to focus on some franchises that Nintendo has forgotten about lately. I think the Star Fox franchise is a good choice. I always wanted to have a space-themed track that isn't Rainbow Road, and Star Fox is perfect for this. After all, this franchise is partially based on the legendary movie series Star Wars. So it's a good choice to start the Special Cup with a crossover track, since that way it will feel more special and climactic. It will be a lap-based track, because since the most we saw of Titania was only in one level from Star Fox 64, we can only do so much things with this theme. But that doesn't mean we can't make the track memorable and unique in its own merits. So let's get to the layout. You start the track on a straightaway, then you immediately speed under some arches. After this, you jump on a pillar, forcing you to perform some sharp turns. You then jump on an air wing, then on other pillars, but those pillars fall off when you're on them, so you have to time and orient your jumps well. Then, you jump into a canyon with anti-gravity. You have to avoid the pillars that are falling, the lasers some towers are shooting, and the bullets other air wings are firing. After this anti-gravity section, you get shot out of a cannon to land on a quadrupedal ship. After taking a couple of sharp turns on it, you jump on another pier that falls off before letting you jump on the main spaceship the Star Fox team uses. Yes, I forgot its name. Then you jump on another air wing before jumping off this one too, so you get back to the starting line. For the Wonderflower effect, an earthquake hits Titania, which sometimes makes the whole ground bouncy. Plus, you will see cracks on the road as well. This track would be short but intense, with a unique space theme that you don't really see that often outside of the Rainbow Road tracks. Perfect to start the Special Cup in a climactic way.
Behold, the king of the...
Before the final showdown, we must have a track that fits the second slot in the Special Cup, as it's gonna be the last regular track in the game. Thus, it's not an easy task to make this track. It must be very climactic to make the players eager to discover the final two tracks in the game, but not so climactic that they steal the show for the penultimate Bowser track and Rainbow Road. So I think another section track that would be a bit of an adventure in a specific game setting would be very appropriate. And it's gonna be a track based on Super Mario Land, because I think it would be fitting for the final cup, given that it has a lot of different and unique settings that feel quite exotic compared to what you're used to in Mario games. Starting in a desert world, having a mountain world, and an Asian themed world. That was a true standout in the Mario franchise in the 90s when this game came out. So, as you probably guessed, this is a section track, because this would obviously be the best way to make this track a true adventure through Sarasayan. The track would start with some twisty turns in the sands of Birabuto Desert, until you perform a couple of jumps on palm trees above the abyss of a canyon. Then, you have to go through a straightaway where some pillars fall off, meaning you have to watch out for them because these pillars destroy the road. Then, you must perform a jump in the middle of the last hole to enter a pyramid. Here, you start with some sharp turns until you enter an anti-gravity section. The turns get more twisty with half-pipes and boost panels until you then jump off a yellow wall to cross a bridge over the lava. There are some gaping holes on that bridge. After a roundabout that goes around a miniature version of the pyramid, you come out of it with a glider towards the Moda Kingdom in an archipelago to start section 2. After some jumps on various islands, you go to Stormy Island where you climb a destroyed boat before gliding to an underwater cave. In the cave, you first perform a jump above the abyss, but with a twist. This time, there is no glider. That means you must always trick on the water geysers to stay in the air until the road continues.
I wouldn't if I were you. Who knows what we'll find? Jellyfish? Sharks? Your old socks you lost 10 years ago.
After this, you climb a second destroyed ship and glide from it to go to the Eastern Kingdom. You can perform tricks on various Moai rocks before entering a cave with a lot of twisty turns and split paths that are about the same length. Then, you get a short underwater section with split paths before going above a pit with a lot of Moais to trick from. You then start section 3 by entering the bamboo forest of Chai Kingdom. Here, you must go through this bamboo forest while performing tight turns. Then, you enter a temple in anti-gravity with an illusion having the road tilt each turn. You then climb the temple to jump on a mountain above the clouds. Here, you have to trick off temple rooftops and bounce on mushrooms while riding on anti-gravity bridges as well. The last bridge is very long, with some tight turns, then at the end of it, you start a final glider section. During this part, you have to be careful not to get hit by an airplane that is sending missiles to the player characters, because if they hit you, you fall off. At the end, you end the track by landing on a giant airship. For the Wonderflower effect, ninjas start to dance on the track, but they also throw shurikens at you to hinder you. An electro ninja dance party theme would also play. I think this would be a varied and climactic track that could be a true adventure for the player, while hyping them up for the final showdown.
Here we are at
Bowser
Factory.
Yep, this is the surprise of the Special Cup. Since Mario Kart Super Circuit, every Special Cup has a Bowser's Castle as its penultimate track. Of course, it makes sense to have first a Bowser track, then a Rainbow Road track to cap off a Nitro selection, Bowser's Castle almost acts like the final boss in the game, while Rainbow Road acts like the credits and sort of a phase 2 for the final boss at the same time. But I think that the Bowser track could be a bit different to make the special cup stand out. I think that instead of happening in a castle, it could happen in a giant factory in the sky with green lava and a lot of complex machinery. This is because Super Mario Bros. Wonder had just that as the setting for the final world, so it would make sense if we wanted to make the Bowser track stand out. It's gonna be a section-based track once again, with a twist near the end that you wouldn't see anywhere else in the game. The track starts with a small road above purple clouds. You enter the factory from a giant and intimidating door. You turn left, then right to enter the first room. Here, there are two speed paths followed by a platform where you must take a sharp turn to the left or to the right to determine which path you'll take. Both paths are about the same length, even though the left one takes you into an electric machine. They both have anti-gravity, half-pipes, and a lot of boost panels. Then, the two paths converge into a giant set of conveyor belts. The first part has tiles that all take you to a specific direction, and you should try and get on the ones that will take you to the next section the quickest. Next, you have a short twisty turn in anti-gravity with conveyor belts before entering a clear pipe to start the second section by getting dropped in a weird machine. This part has a lot of very sharp turns, but the true standout feature in this room is the fact that a lot of pipes will drop various enemies on the ground, like Bob-Omb or Mr. I. After this part, you speed on boost panels to go under the giant factory. You have to glide over the clouds while avoiding the bullet bills that are being shot at you. Maybe you could even see Airship Fortress in the distance during this part. Then, you land on another metric platform to enter the factory again. This time, you have to jump on the moving platform that is the closest to you when you're coming here. Then, you must manage to get on the bridge while being on a platform that is constantly rotating. Then, you start the final section, and this is where things truly get crazy. The Wonder Flower effect of this track would kind of be the final boss of Wonder Effects. Rainbow Road would have a Wonder Effects too, but the one in Bowser's Factory is gonna be the most climactic, because when you start the final section, a rocket is launched out of the factory. You speed through several boost panels, then you jump on this rocket that is launched towards outer space. Then, on the top of that rocket, a mechanical Bowser appears, and you must defeat it to complete the track. To do so, you have to speed on the rocket in anti-gravity, and you can turn around it at your will. There are boost panels that speed you up, but also electric tiles that have the same effect as lightning if you roll on them. Meanwhile, Mechanical Bowser is throwing you fire comets that you also have to avoid, and there are several walls, holes, and short paths in the track to make it even harder. At the end of the final section, you cross the finish line and finally defeat Mechanical Bowser as the rocket slows down a bit, ending the track. This would be the perfect way to make a Bowser track climactic, making it feel like a final battle. But thanks to the short length of the track and the layout, that is simple enough not to be a finale, this doesn't steal the show for Rainbow Road. That finally brings us to the one, the only Rainbow Road. Frankly, I'm kinda fed up with the space theme at this point. Don't get me wrong, while it lasted, it was great, and it gave us my favorite track of all Mario Kart history, Wii Rainbow Road. But this time, I want something that stands out a bit more, especially since Mario Kart 8's Nitro Rainbow Road was pretty disappointing. And this is how I got an interesting idea. Instead of having a dark sky, why not have an orange sky with a lot of orange clouds, while still making it feel somewhat sunny. That way, the track could really be an epic finale for Mario Kart 9 by feeling like you're racing in the stratosphere. And of course, as you probably expect, this will be a section-based track, but still way harder and more hectic than 3DS Rainbow Road, so that this track can keep the beauty aspect of it while being the final and hard challenge for the player. So without further ado, let's get to the layout. You start the track by jumping from the rocket that you rode on in the previous track. Then comes a straightaway that goes down before you get to manage a couple of twisty turns. After this, you already go into anti-gravity mode, and you stay like that for the whole race. You then circle a beanstalk while speeding on boost panels and managing twisty and tight turns. Then you jump, and after another wider turn, you bounce on colored clouds that work like the mushrooms from Mushroom Gorge. Then, after another turn, you start gliding. During this gliding section, there are other balloons you can trick off of. But this time, you have to trick off them, because otherwise you wouldn't get enough airtime to get to the next chunk of the road. After this, you must choose between two split paths that both have a lot of boost panels and half pipes. You then perform more turns until you jump on a road with a lot of boost panels that is extending between two rainbow waterfalls. On this road, you have to avoid all the gaping holes that make you fall through the abyss while spinning on boost panels. Then, you jump off the road and you start the second section. Here, you normally have to perform a lot of winding turns one after the other with some half pipes, but if you're bored enough, you can use the small ramp to trick off the road, so you can try and perform a shortcut to skip these turns. Then, you jump inside a celestial rainbow pond with a lot of cheeps. Here, there is a very low gravity, meaning you're practically floating when you trick, and there are a lot of geysers to trick from in the spots, allowing you to perform various shortcuts. After the spot, you perform a couple of turns, then you go through several trickable ramps until you approach Mario's Rainbow Castle from the first Mario Party game. You first circle one of the towers while spinning on some boost panels before jumping near it and entering the castle. Here, you discover a room made entirely of rainbow mosaics. The structure of it will hinder your vision, so you have to be careful to see where you're going and where the road actually leads. You then exit the castle to circle another tower, then after some other tight turns, you finally enter section 3. After a jump, you start a giant loop-de-loop where you have to avoid gaping holes and speed on the boost panels. At the end of the loop-de-loop, you glide to go through a turquoise waterfall that was actually flowing through one of the loop-de-loop's gaping holes. You then have to trick off some weird rainbow square platforms to keep enough airtime and to get to the next platform. Then, after a turn, you do this again, but this time without the glider. You then take some other turns to jump near a giant colorful pyramid. There are a lot of boulders falling on the track and tight turns that will send you back to an earlier spot in this section if you fail them. Then, you jump off the pyramid, and after some other turns, you end up gliding towards a giant pink cloud for the grand finale. You must speed through the entire road with all the boost panels that are gathered through it, but you must also avoid the electric tiles that are scattered across it. And while doing that, you must perform all kinds of tight and difficult turns as well. In the end, you speed through a final straightaway, and the finish line is a glider ramp. You end the track as you roll on it, and before the score screen comes up, you have a small cutscene with all the characters coming out of the pink cloud to glide across the setting sun. And for the wonderful effect, the whole track starts twisting around constantly, making the layout a bit more confusing and making it harder to see where you're supposed to go. The sky becomes rainbow colored, and floating islands where everyone is cheering appear in the sky as the road starts glittering. This would really be the best finale ever for a game like this hypothetical Mario Kart 9. It's got the difficulty, a way to stand out from the other rainbow roads, variety in the places you visit, and a beautiful atmosphere with an epic finale. Honestly, if this track turned out to be reality, it would probably become my favorite Mario Kart track of all time. Well, this video is now over. It took me a lot of time making all of those tracks, but it was totally worth it. I just loved creating all of those courses and imagining how I would make the Nitro tracks for Mario Kart game. The next part is gonna be about battle mode, and I think it's gonna be a fun one as well. So until then, thanks for watching, see you next time.
Goodbye.